guys, I'm so excited to be here today because it's been a while. It's been about 2 weeks, and that's a while for me because, you know, I want to get a video to you all every week. However, I went on vacation last week and I had a really good time with my mom and my daughter. We went out to the beach and we spent 4th of July on the beach, so I had a really good time. The whole time I was there, I was thinking about getting back to you guys to give you another DIY video. So this is going to be more of a sew along. I'm going to kind of take some things from the pattern that I will be using. Oh, speaking of patterns, the patterns that we will be using today is Simplicity 2222. 2222, yeah, 4 twos. All right, and I think the one that I am going to be actually doing, they call the edgy look. So I'm kind of going to be using this particular pattern here, or doing this style here, but I'm going to kind of use the top portion of here and take away all the rhinestones and all that stuff. All right, so the fabric that I'm going to be using, I'm starting out with about 3 yards of rayon chalice fabric, and I'm going to be using more of a chevron type fabric. If you can see here, chevron. I found this. It's a rayon. It's a chevron print, but it's a rayon chalice type fabric, so it doesn't have any give to it, but that's okay because this is a kind of loose fitting, you know, nice and huggy in the right places, but I don't need anything with some give to it. So I'm going to be using this. I think it'll be really pretty. I am a huge fan of pink anyway. Yeah, I'm a tomboy, but I like pink. Anyway, so I cannot wait to do this with you guys. I cannot wait to see all your creations. Hashtag any creations that you have. If you're on Instagram, my Instagram is, and you can hashtag Miss Crafty Chick or MCC DIY. All right, that stands for Miss Crafty Chick DIY. You can hashtag any of those and show me your creations, what you make. I'd love to see them. Let's get started. All right, guys, so let's get started. The things that you will need are 5 buttons, and you're going to need about 1/2 inch buttons. Fabric, about 3 yards. You can either use jersey fabric or this is rayon chalice fabric, but you're going to need about 3 yards for that, depending on your size. Make sure to follow the back. For mine, I use a size 12, between a 10 and a 12. Scissors, pattern weights, needles, of course thread to match whatever your fabric is going to be. You're going to also need some 1/2 inch bias tape, single fold, 1/2 inch elastic for your waist, and your pattern pieces. Alright, so as far as your pattern pieces go, we're going to follow the pattern for the most part with the romper part, the short part. There's 3 different ones that you can use: a longer skirt with elastic waist and pockets, a shorter skirt with the elastic waist, no pockets, or you can do the pockets with the shorts. I'm going to do the shorts. However, I'm not going to use any pockets or any of the accessories that they have lined all around it. No studs or anything, all right? So as far as pattern pieces, what you'll need is pattern piece 6, and these pieces that I'm calling out right now, you'll cut fabric as well as interfacing for just these pieces. That's piece 6 and piece 16. All right, both of those pieces, it tells you on the pattern how to cut. Now 6 is a little tricky. Be careful because the actual instructions usually are written on the pattern piece, but for this particular one, it's actually written on the piece that you have to cut away. All right, so for piece 6, you're going to use interfacing as well as fabric. For piece 16, you're also going to use interfacing, and it says on here, cut 2 of fabric, cut 2 of interfacing. All right, now we're going to put those to the side. All right, you're also going to need piece 11. Now, this piece is not mentioned on the pattern until you get later on, but it's not mentioned on the pieces to cut. But what this is going to be used to measure the elastic. All right, so now one thing I always think about when I'm doing my elastic is it does give you sizes, 12, 14, 16, 18, whatever, as far as how to measure your elastic. But you also want to measure it according to how comfortable it's going to be for you. All right, so even though I cut a pattern piece 12, I cut a pattern piece 14 for my elastic because I don't want it super tight around there. If I got to wear this all day, I want it to be comfortable. Main important thing, comfortability. Is that a word? Comfortability. All right. Anyway, so you get the gist of it. Make sure you measure it according to how comfortable it is for you. All right. So that was piece 11. Piece 18 for the band you're going to need. Piece 12, the yoke front, you're going to need. Piece 9, and that's another yoke front and pocket, but we won't be adding the pocket. Piece 7, now piece 7 is also not mentioned on the pattern. However, piece 7 is what you're going to use to do your buttonholes, all right? So it's going to lay on top of your pattern, and it's going to be used to know where to put your buttonholes on. So make sure you cut that piece out. 7 and 11 are not mentioned. Piece 19, and that piece is your back piece. This is also your bodice back piece. Piece 15. Piece 14. Piece 17, which is your front, and the other one was your bodice front also, and piece 8, which is another front piece. Now the reason there's so many front pieces is because with the front piece it has a section up here that cuts off here, and then you connect another piece to go all the way down to your waist. So what we're going to do now is lay out our fabric and start cutting. One thing I would suggest when you start cutting your pattern pieces is to make sure that you lay everything out on your fabric before you start cutting. The reason being is because a lot of times you may have to fold it the wide way, or you may have to fold it the other way. And if you look on your pattern, it kind of tells you which way would be best to fold it and how you should lay your pieces. It does give you suggestions. However, I always lay out all my pieces, the pieces that are supposed to be on the fold, not on the fold or whatever, just to make sure that I got enough fabric. All right, so we're going to go ahead and lay out those pieces. Alright, so I have all my pieces laid out. The only pieces that I do not have laid out are the pieces that I'm going to cut interface, both interfacing and fabric. I'll do those as soon as I finish this. However, I did notice that piece 8 and piece 15 are on the fold. So those two pieces, make sure that you lay on the fold. And you should know the fold is literally just where it's folded at. There's no open edge. It's not the selvage edge, which is on this end, but it's actually the folded edge, which is this end here. All right, so you want to make sure that you lay everything out according to how you're going to cut it. Get all your pieces laid out. Now, I don't have enough weights for all of my pieces. I do need to buy some more because it'll make it easier to just go from piece to piece without having to move weights around. But you want to go ahead and make sure that you lay out your weights on your fabric for the piece that you're going to cut, or however many pieces that you can get in. And line it up right, because I promise you, if you don't line it up right, when you start to put these pieces together and then you wonder why they ain't fitting, or they're not fitting the way they need to, then it's because you skimped out a little bit somewhere. Alright, also while you're cutting, make sure that you pay attention to all of the instructions that it has on your pattern piece. For instance, this one tells me on piece 8 that you're going to need a 1-inch seam allowance. So I'm going to also transfer that marking over to my fabric. Just make a notation that I need fabric, that I need 1-inch seam allowance on those particular pieces. Alright, so one thing that I determined while I was doing my cutting and all that side of the way is that also the piece 6, it needs to be cut on the fold too. Alright, for piece 16 you have a fabric piece as well as a interfacing piece. For 6 you also have a fabric piece as well as an interfacing piece. What you're going to do for that is to put your interfacing on the wrong side of your fabric and use your steam setting on your iron to press it. Now what I use mainly is a wet rag. Lay it over a portion. If I have big pieces, I just lay it down, lay it over a portion and iron that. And the instructions are on your interfacing about how your iron needs to be, how hot your iron needs to be. I do that on one piece, and then I'll move on section by section. Don't try to do it all at once, or don't try to iron your interfacing on, because you'll get puckles in your interfacing, and that's going to make for a not so clean look. Alright, so go ahead and iron on your interfacing on both piece 6 and piece 16. Make sure to follow the interfacing instructions. Alright, so I've done interfacing on all 3 pieces. That's 2 pieces for 16 and 1 piece for 6. And you want to make sure that if you have any interfacing that's hanging over the edge, you just go ahead and cut that off. You don't want to mess with any fabric that may be on the edge, but do go ahead and cut all the interfacing that may be hanging on the outside. Alright, let's start putting these pieces together. Alright ladies, so after you finish cutting out all of your pieces, the first pieces that we're going to work with are our back bodice. And what you need to do on your back bodice is go ahead and do a stay stitch all the way around the corner. And all that is to help stabilize it so it doesn't stretch. You want to do it on your back bodice piece. And you want to do it on your 2 pieces that look similar to this, like a horseshoe. Or like a shoe. But what you want to do on these is go ahead and do a stay stitch all the way going down that piece. You have a short curved piece and a long curved piece, and you just want to go ahead and do a stay stitch all the way down that long curved pieces on both pieces. Okay, so once you finish stay stitching both pieces, you should do it on your back piece. And I did just a stay stitch, and what that is, like I said, it's just a stabilizing stitch that keeps it from stretching. And then I also did it on both of my side pieces, or both of my connecting top pieces. Alright, once you finish that, then you're going to move that to the side. And you want to grab your one of your front pieces. And if you noticed on one of your front pieces, it has a little notch here up at the top for your armhole. And at the bottom, if you made your markings correctly, you should have a buttonhole marking. You're going to go ahead and stitch your buttonhole going all the way across on both pieces. And when it finishes, it should look similar to this. And make sure when you're stitching that you're stitching on the wrong side, and that's on top of your interfacing that you did. And this is how it should look. So you want to do that on both pieces. And once you finish doing that on both pieces, then your next step is to go ahead and do a gathering stitch. And that's just one at the seam line and 1/4 from the seam line between your 2 notches. And you have 2 notches that you're on this piece. And forgive me, this piece is piece 14. This is the piece that you're working with now. And you want to go ahead and do a gathering stitch from one notch to the other. Do 2 so you can have an even gather. You do 1 on the seam line, and then you come back and do 1/4 from the top. So go ahead and get your buttonholes done and your gathering stitch done. So once you finish your gathering, you want to go ahead and gather it up a nice good bit. And what you're going to do is take your yoke piece. I think this is your piece 12. All right, you're going to line your pieces up together, right sides together. And make sure if it does not fit, if your yoke is bigger than your front bodice piece, that you go ahead and adjust it using your gathers like I did. And then you want to go ahead first and pin it, do a base stitch, and then come back and do a regular stitch. When you're done, this is how it should look. And I did a base stitch first, and then I came back and did a regular stitch. Once you finish that, you want to go ahead and press your seam towards your yoke. And this is your yoke piece, the piece that looks like a shoe. And you want to go ahead and press that towards your yoke like that. So take your iron and go across it. Alright, so we have just finished doing our front pieces, and we have our back piece laying down here face up. And we also have our front piece laid on top of it face down. Now you do want to make sure that you seam it going straight across, and then you go ahead and you stitch it going straight across, and then you ironed it towards your yoke. Once you finish ironing it towards your yoke, what you want to do is take your back piece, your front piece, and turn it over and lay it on your sewing machine and sew a top stitch going all the way down on 1/4. and we'll do it about 1/4 from where your seam line is. So you want to turn it over. You want to lay it down, face down on your sewing machine, and then you want to sew your stitch 1/4 from your original stitch. Once you finish doing your top stitch, then go ahead and connect your shoulders together. This is my front piece, and this is my back piece, and it has like an arch, and that's where you're going to be connecting your two shoulder pieces. And then you just go ahead and pin them together and stitch all the way across at the shoulders. Do not connect the bottom piece yet. So you should have finished attaching your shoulders together, and they should look just like this. Alright, so you want to put that to the side, and you want to grab your 2-piece 16s, and your piece 6. And what we're going to do is connect this piece. This is the piece that's going to go around the front to reinforce the front. So what you want to do is go ahead and flip this over. So that your front sides are together. And you want to stitch one side going all the way across. And then you want to do the same thing with the other side. You want to stitch that also going all the way across, so it should look similar to that when you finish. Alright, we'll come back and see how ours look. Alright, so I have stitched together my piece 6 and 16s, and this is how it should look, guys. Alright, and then what I suggest that you do is go ahead and open up your seam and press it on both sides. Alright, and then your next step is along the outside, which is along the outside of the rim, the piece that is connected fully. What you're going to do is do a 1/4 stitch all the way across. Alright, so start at the bottom and go all the way across and do a 1/4 from the edge stitch. And then you're going to fold it in on that stitch and do another either zigzag stitch, or you can do a you can use your overlock machine, or you can just do a straight stitch. Alright, so I brought this piece back so that you can see what it looks like once we stitch it all the way down using your zigzag stitch, or you can use, you know, your straight stitch if you'd like. That's completely up to you. Alright, and then what we're going to do is put this over to the side, not far away. And we're going to grab our front and back pieces here. And what you want to do is go ahead and turn it right side out. And grab your piece that I told you not to put far away. And you're going to line this up, right sides together. Pin it going all the way around. Make sure that all of your side seams match. All of your shoulder seams match. Make sure that everything matches and pin that together all the way around. Right sides together once again. And then you're going to stitch going all the way around once you pin that together. So we have sewn on our neck edge all the way around. And as you can see, I did mine all the way around. And now what you want to do once you finish doing that is go along and trim your edges down to about 1/4 all the way around. Trim it all the way down to about 1/4, and when you get to your corners, just snip those. Just do a small snip. And then when you finish with that, what we're going to do is go ahead and turn everything inside out, or right side out, like so. And then we're going to press and do a top stitch 1/4 from the finish edge. So go ahead and clip your insides, clip the corners, trim down to about 1/4 on your seam allowance, and then flip it on the inside press your garment all the way around, and then do a top stitch 1/4 from the finished edge. Alrighty guys, I have done my top stitch going all the way around, and what you can do is go back and remove your basting stitch that you did, or your stitch that you did, your stay stitch that you did. You can go ahead and remove that one, but this is just to show you that I went all the way around, and never mind my markings because that's my center, and you're about to use that center, because what you're going to do now, since you finish doing your top stitch all the way around, is, let's move our scissors out of the way. You're going to lay it out, and you notice you have that center line running all the way down both sides. You're going to match those centers together, and then you're going to pin it like I've done here, and run a basting stitch all the way across just to hold those in place, so that after you finish that, you can turn it over and pin your sides like I've started to do here. Pin it going all the way down, and then do a stitch on both sides going all the way down. So make sure to base your centers together first. Pin and base your centers, and make sure they're lined up nice and neat. And then turn it on the inside and pin your sides, and then sew your sides going all the way down. Alright guys, so if you see here, I finished doing all of my side seams on both sides. And now it's time to do your armhole, or to stitch up your armhole. They tell you to stitch your bias tape 3/8 inches from your edge. So to cheat, what I kind of do is just go ahead and do me a 3/8 stitch all the way around to use as a guide for my bias tape. And then I always take my bias tape and I iron out the side that I'm going to be laying against my fabric. So since this is the side that I'm going to be laying against my fabric, I've already ironed that out and pressed it out. And then I want to take that bias tape, and this would be considered your wrong side, the side where you see your folds, and this is considered your right side. You want to take that right side and match it up with the right side of your garment, and start at your side seam. And you want to lap it under. Sorry about that. Alright, so you start at your side seam, and you want to go ahead and lap fold it under, maybe about a 1/2 inch. And then you want to lay your crease that is ironed out, but you still should be able to see it. Lay the crease of your bias tape along that line and pin. So you want to use that as a guide, and that was the reason for stitching it. And you just want to lay your bias tape and go all the way around, and then cut off the amount that you need. Once you've pinned it all the way around and you've got your creases lined up with your guide, then you want to go ahead and do a stitch in your crease all the way around. Do that on both sides, and we'll come back and see what it looks like. Alright, we are slowly creeping towards the finish line. I have attached my bias tape here, and if you see here on the arm, on the side seams, I folded it under, so when I fold my bias tape under, I get a nice clean edge. But what you want to do is go ahead and stitch it on, and then trim the outside. Trim your leftover down to your bias tape. And then what I did was press it under. See, I pressed my whole bias tape under so that it is invisible on the outside, and on the inside you got a nice clean bias tape. Or you can pin it however you prefer. Here's another method. I prefer to go ahead and iron mine down. That way while I'm sewing, I don't have to worry about pins or anything, because it pretty much stays in place. But once you finish, you want to go ahead and from the edge, about close to the edge of the end of your bias tape, you want to go ahead and run a stitch all the way around. Okie dokie smoky. So we are done, or I am done with the bias tape, the armhole, nice and clean on the outside, nice and clean on the inside. Ooh, ooh. Alright, and what I did after I finished turning under my bias tape and stitching along the edge of the inside, what I did was turn it back on the outside, and I ran a stitch all the way down the side of the shoulder seam. And what that did was just tack down both pieces together. Alright, and it tacked down that facing on the outside, so you don't have to worry about it flipping on you. But you can go ahead and do that on both sides. And then once you finish that, we want to put that to the side. And we want to pull our piece 17 and our piece 18 out. Alright, this is your piece 18, and before we connect it to our other piece, our piece 17, which you should have two pieces from also, what you're going to do on this is find the side that does not have any notches on it. So you have the side that does have notches, and then you have the side that doesn't have notches. And what you want to do is fold that under 3/8 of an inch and press. Do that on both sides. So that under 3/8 of an inch, fold it under 3/8 of an inch and then press. Alright, so I have my piece 18 and my piece 17, and I've taken on my piece 18 and folded it under 3/8 of an inch and pressed. And then what you're going to do is make sure that you have your piece 17 laid the correct way. So you should have your big arch here and your smaller arch here. And then you're going to take your piece 18 and you're going to lay it along the side and match up your raw edges. And you're going to run a stitch close to your pressed edge all the way down to the bottom. You're going to do that on both pieces. You have two pieces. Lay that piece out. Put your piece 18 on top, and then press a line on, do a stitch all the way down the edge close to your pressed edge. Once you finish that, then you're going to run a basting stitch along all of your raw edges. So along the corner and then all the way down. A basting stitch. That is a stitch that's a long stitch on your machine that you can pull out after you finish. Alright, so we have finished attaching our flap, or they call it our band. And remember, we just stitched all the way down the folded edge with a regular stitch as close as we could to the folded edge, and then on the outside raw edges just did a basting stitch on both pieces. Now what you're going to do is, what it's time to do is add our pocket. Alright, so you're going to take your front yoke and pocket piece, which is your piece 9. You're going to take your piece 9 and you're going to lay it on top of your other piece, and you're going to match up your edges. Like so. Right sides together. And then what you're going to do is pin and make sure you match all your notches. And what you're going to do is pin going straight along the side, and then you're going to run a stitch going straight along. So your next step, once you have connected your front piece or your yoke and pocket piece to your other piece, is to go ahead and trim down your seam allowance. And you want to do that on both pieces. And trim it down to about 1/4 of an inch. You don't want to leave much because you want it to be nice and easy to turn over. And then once you've trimmed it down, you want to take it and fold it on the inside. And you want to press along that line, along that fold line. Once you've pressed it on the outside, or folded it, your yoke over and pressed and made a nice clean seam, then what you're going to do is stitch 1/4 inches from the finished edge, and then 1/4 inches from the finished edge. So you're going to do 2 stitches, a 1/4 stitch and a 1 1/4 stitch. Do that on both sides. Alright, we have done our 1/4 stitch Alright, so we've done our 1/4 stitch and our 1 1/4 stitch, and I just did a 1/4 stitch, then I went over an inch and did another stitch. Once you do that, you want to take your yoke piece and fold it in to match the other side like this, and then you want to run a stitch, a 5/8 stitch, all the way to the edge. Leave it free from the other piece, but make sure that you fold it matching your notches, and run a stitch on both pieces from one edge to the other. Alright, so we have finished our pocket pieces, and if you notice, there's your pocket for both pieces. And next what we're going to do is connect our other leg piece, and then we'll be almost done. Alright, so before we start putting together our last piece for our to complete our bottom piece or shorts, go ahead before we get started, and right where you did your pocket at, take your pocket, make sure it's lined up nice and flat, and then run a basting stitch to connect them across the pocket leading into the inside of the pocket. So just do a small basting stitch right across here, just straight across on both sides. Alright, so when you finish, your basting stitch should look similar to this wide stitch, just to keep it together. And what we're going to do next is go ahead and put our last piece for our shorts on top. So what you want to do is take your next piece. This piece would be piece 19, and what you want to do is, if you notice, it's shaped like a horseshoe also. So you want to line it up face down, or right sides together. So this is my right side and this is my wrong side, and I'm going to lay it across and match it up with the other horseshoe piece, or the not horseshoe, or the other shoe piece of the front piece that has the pocket attached. Once you get them together, only here you want to go ahead and pin. Leave the rest of it free for now, but you want to go ahead and pin it, and then run a seam going, or run a stitch going straight down it at a 5/8 inch. Alright, so I've stitched the inseam of both of mine, and I made sure I did a back stitch on the end and on the top and the bottom, so that I didn't have to worry about it coming apart. And then what you want to do is spread out your one piece. And then spread out your other piece on top of that. Right sides together. So you should have your front two pieces on one side and your two back pieces on the other side. Alright, and then what you want to do is pin all the way around the inseam, and then you want to do a 5/8 stitch all the way around the inseam to connect those pieces together. Alright, so I have sewn my inseam together, and you should have done the same. And what you want to also do is go ahead, and once you sew it the first time on the 5/8 inch, do another seam right on top of it, 5/8 inch. That's just for reinforcement, so it doesn't come apart on you. Alright, that might be a little bit embarrassing if it fall off you. Anyway, or if you sit down and it splits. So you don't want that, but make sure you do a double seam, one on top of the other, all the way around the inseam. Once you do that, then what you want to do is turn it to the inside, or turn it to the outside. So you just flip it, and you still want the wrong side showing and your right sides together when you sew it. And this is the reason for you tacking your pocket, so you don't have to worry about making sure it's in place and all that when you sew your side seams on. Oops, I left a pin in there. Alright, so you want to do is go ahead and line up your side seams, right sides together like so. Alright, and you want to sew a stitch all the way down. Make sure that your pocket and everything is lined up together too. I did not base this inner pocket, but I should have. However, make sure everything's lined up nice and neat and taut before you go ahead and run a stitch going all the way down both side seams. Alright, and I'll fix this and go ahead and run it straight down on the 5/8, and do that on both sides. Ladies and gents, I hope that your pants look like mine did. I have finished doing the seams on both sides. The inseam I did, and then I did the outside, and then I turned them right side out. So here's how my pants look, and what we are going to do now is add our bodice piece. So what you want to do is go ahead and get your bodice piece, and remember we had you pin it down, or we had you base it down at the bottom, so that your pieces stay together, and for this reason that we're about to use it for. Alright, and so what you want to do is leave your pants turned right side out and turn your bodice wrong side out, like so. And then you want to slip your bodice down inside of your pants, or on the outside of your pants rather. Alright, and you still got your wrong side out on your bodice. And then what you want to go ahead and do is line up your seams together. Get this straight here. Alright, so I'm going to line up my front seam here. I'm going to line up all of my side seams together, like so. And you're going to pin all the way around. And then what you want to do is sew in first a 1-inch seam. All the way around, sew in the 1-inch seam, and you're gonna need to do that, because if you don't, you won't have any room for your casing or for your elastic to go around. Alright, so go ahead, line up all of your seams. Do like I did, turn it right side out. That way right sides are together, so you turn leave your pants right side out, turn your shirt wrong side out, and then insert your pants into your shirt, like so. And then you want to line up all of your seams, all of your side seams, and your front seam. Alright, the shirt doesn't have a back seam, so you won't have to really line that up. It should fall once you line up your side seams. Pin it all together, and then do a 1-inch seam all the way around. So I have attached my pants and my top, my bodice, and my shorts, and it is looking beautiful. I really like it so far. So what we're going to do is now do the casing for the inside. Like I told you, you do a 1-inch seam on the inside. If you don't, it won't work. You won't have enough room for your casing. So enough room for your elastic. So I did a 1-inch seam on the inside. Alright, and then what you're going to do is just on your bodice piece, do not do it on your shorts. On your bodice piece, you're going to trim it down to about 1/5 inch from raw edge. 1/4 inch raw edge. So you're going to leave about a 1/4 inch from your stitch line. Okie doke, I have cut down on my bodice only 1/4 of an inch down from the stitch line, and so you can see here how it's different from my short piece. I left that the entire amount, 5/8 of an inch. And now what you want to do is take your pant seam and press it going up all the way around. Alright, once you do that, then you're going to fold it under 1/4 of an inch and press it again. Alright, so that's going to be your casing for your elastic. Alright, your elastic is a 1/4 inch elastic. And so that's what you're going to use to encase your elastic all the way around. Alright, so go ahead and press it going up. Press all of your short seams going up all the way around. And then once you get that pressed up, then you're going to fold it under 1/4 of an inch and press again. Alright, so I have finished my casing for my inside, and what I basically did was cut it down 1/4 of an inch. And then I took my bottom piece, which is for your pants, and I folded it, I ironed it, and then folded it over that, and then sewed right along the same line that I did my original stitch at. Alright, now it tells you, and you can see that, and I got room left on the inside for my elastic. Now it tells you to add twill to it, or to add twill that comes out of the buttonholes. That's right here. All right, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and just leave that like it is and then add my elastic, and that's all I'm going to do. All right, and then I'll be able to add a belt or whatever I want to if I need to at the end. So now what I'm going to do is get my elastic piece. Here's my elastic piece, and what I'm going to do is just simply take my elastic that I purchased. And I purchased a 1/2 inch. You can either do a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. 1/4 inch may actually be a little bit easier to do it. I'm not sure why they told you to get a 1/2 inch because the casing is 1/4 inch, but I'm going to make it fit. So I'm just measuring from one side to the next. And then I'm going to cut right at where I measure and then use a pin to stick inside of my elastic and maneuver it around with the opening that I left in the front. And make sure you leave an opening in the front when you're sewing your elastic. I left a rather big opening, but make sure that you leave it an opening because that's where your elastic is going to go through. Alright, so I have finished adding my elastic all the way around. And at the very beginning of where I left my hole for my casing to come, or for my elastic to come through, this is where you want to go ahead and pull it together. And like I told you, make sure that you use a safety pin. It makes it so much easier. And I'm just going to put those together like so, and then you're just going to do a stitch. I usually do like a cross stitch. I bandage it up really good to make sure it does not come loose. Alright, once you finish that, then you want to go ahead and sew it together, and you might want to go ahead and hand sew it instead of trying to do it with your machine. And then you want to turn your garment inside out. You want to go ahead and get your buttonholes, and in case your pattern has been altered, then your buttonholes are going to be a little bit different. So I didn't add mine at the beginning simply because I knew it probably would be altered a bit, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to go back and redo my stitches. Alright, so all I did was my center marking that you see here. So what you want to go ahead and do is just start from the top, and it tells you top on your pattern piece. And you want to lay it exactly where you want your buttonholes to start at. And what I normally do is just pin mine down. And make sure you pin it down exactly where you want your buttons to start. And then you also pin the bottom. Alright, and then I'll probably put one more pin in the middle. And then you want to take your marking pen, and you want to just go ahead and mark through your band so you can put a notch on, or I'm sorry, mark through your paper so that you can put a notch as to where each buttonhole should go. And then remove your pins. And you should have your 5 buttonholes. Alright, so here's my buttonholes. And I'm going to wash my garment before I wear it, so all this will come away. Alright, and then you're just going to go ahead and start your pinhole, or start your buttonhole. And go do each one of your buttonholes. I usually do my buttonholes first, and then go back and match my buttons according to my buttonholes. And what you may want to do is make another small marking on the other side using your guide so you can know where to pin your buttons. I'm gonna do my happy dance. I'm gonna do my happy dance. Okay. Alright, well, I have my buttons on. That's why I am happy. And I hope yours are on too. You can see my buttons. I chose these really pretty white iridescent type buttons to use. And then when I wash all that off, it will be just about done. The only thing left to do is to hem your pants. Alright, and you can do this one of two ways. You can either use your bias tape. You decide to use your bias tape, then you just do the same way we did our armholes. Unfold one and press it open. Use your crease to put on the edge, or not rather on the edge, but about 3/8 inches from the edge. Alright, and then stitch it and fold it under. I'm sorry, do that on your right side, not on the wrong side. If you decide to do that on the right side. Stitch it 3/8 from the edge, trim, and then fold under. Or you can just do a simple 1/4 and press, which is what I'm going to do, and then go ahead and hem or stitch it all the way, or hem it all the way around when you finish. Alright, and then we're done. I cannot wait to see your pictures. Don't forget to hashtag and let me see your creations. I cannot wait. If you have any questions, please drop them below. Until next time, I hope you enjoyed this DIY.